We have families that really want to understand the process. They have a heart for these folks that are having to make grievous decisions about giving up their children. And they wonder about the whole issue of child trafficking. They wonder about how well prepared are these people to understand the future that these children are going to have.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens?
When a biological family comes, or a mother comes, and she asks us to take care of her children, we research, after researching the economical status and the reasons why, we have a sheet of a criteria for adoption that we go through with her, even before the child comes in. And this is being done without the child or the children being with her. This is between social worker, secretary, nurse, maybe myself, and then sometimes Hanok. So it's a little team that really evaluates the mother's position or the biological family's position, and we sit with them and we say to them, if this is the option of the home-based program, can we see if we can help you here? And oftentimes, the Lord shows us she's beyond that capacity. She's far removed from that and has already neglected and deserted her children. So the rest of it is formality. But that we don't know until we start entering this conversation. Then we go through the criteria of adoption with her, according to the law of Ethiopia, according to the law of America, and according to The Hague. When all those explanations are really thoroughly laid before her, then we say to her, would you like to go home and go think and pray about this? Would you like to have some time to just consider? Sometimes they do, and then they return, and when they do, we go through it again with them. Because you have a different level of understanding here. We go through it with them again one more time, and then when they agree, we let them sign it. And we explain to them, because you agree, we let you sign, or sometimes thumbprint, or just make a cross. And then that document is attached to our document, so that when she would come back, we can remind her if she has any more questions. That is not binding to keeping her child in the orphanage. She still has the freedom to come and get her child. And we have given a child back that's been with us for 7 months back to his mother when she came back. And her economical situation has changed, and she could take care of him. And we invited the police and the local Kebele to come and be a part of that moment, so that they can see that the heart of what we do is for the best interest of the child. If the child can stay with his mother, that's where he stays. So we release the child then. But if they sign the criteria for adoption form, that is their release form and consent form to say, I want you to continue to find a family for my child. And then, only then, we accept the child into the program, and then they can be referred. Which also means that when the mother goes to court, we bring her back into the office and we counsel her again, and we prepare her, and we say to her, now this is the place that you're going to go into, because this is 9 out of 10 times the first trip that they make out of their village. Mm-hmm. This is the first bus trip that many of them get to make. The men travel much more frequently than the women do. So Solomon and Zelalem and the other guys, all the social workers then prepare every family member for court, because it's a very different environment for them to walk into. They get tongue-tied, they get overwhelmed, they get scared, they get frightened, and sometimes they suddenly change their tune in front of the judge. Mm-hmm. When the judge starts to pressure them a little bit so that he can see how serious or how desperate they are. So there is a long process to follow, which also sets for us the example and the platform to then say to adoptive families, this is why this is a closed adoption. This is why you should not have contact with the biological family. It is a very traumatic and painful thing for them to go through. And I have seen the contact of an adoptive family really confusing and disturbing the biological mother. She has already gone through grief, and now she's reminded of the decision that she made.
And it's important. Our families sometimes question why we don't allow them to share pictures and a lot of information about children until they've been through court. We had a family not long ago that had to relinquish their referral because the parents had been separated. They couldn't care for these children. The children had made it so far in the process that they were actually living in Addis. And the parents got back together and they said, we want our children back. And of course, our first response was, if those parents can care for their children, then they need to be returned to them. And so the children were returned to the community and to the family. And that's a very difficult and painful thing for an adoptive family to go through. Mm-hmm. And the fewer people who are involved in the intimate details of your adoption that you have to make explanations to when something that critical happens in your adoption, the more you're able to lessen the pain and the grief that you have to deal with in public. And so those things happen. Sometimes children come into the orphanage and they don't live. And Stephanie and the staff are dealing with this situation of burying children that they weren't able to rescue. And sharing that information with an adoptive family is one of the hardest things as a case manager, to say all the hope that you put in this young life has suddenly been snuffed out. And you can't even be there to hold that child at a distance. The grief that you have is half a world away. And you have to walk through that with very few people understanding what's going on in your life. So there are so many precautions that are just a daily part of our lives that we forget to explain to families, because those questions don't come up all the time, but when they do, it's a very grievous time in your life that you have to deal with, and we walk through that with you.